Hi everyone, I'm Taron and this is Odin2. And Odin is a very fascinating synthesizer. Yeah, because at first glance, I think it instantly looks like a modular synth. And then you play around with it and you find out, oh, okay, you have a number of different kinds of oscillators, even FM, chiptune, even a chiptune oscillator. And you have a number of filters, oh, okay, a bunch of, bandpass, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So then you think, it's basically kind of like this cluster of different kind of synth configurations you can make for yourself, and that's about it. And it looks modular, but it's just because it's in modules, but it's not like one of those with the cables and But then at the last phase, you discover the mod matrix, and you realize that you can pick as modulation source almost everything if you want to. You have even the oscillator output, even the filter output that you can route to modulate any other parameter, or at least a heck of a lot of them. So this actually is a very, very modular synthesizer. And so Odin goes deep. It's really a wonderful thing. But today we're just going to have a look at one specific thing, and that is the comb filter, because I was promising to give a little bit of a, hey, this is a comb filter. Anyhow, so let's have a look at it. For the comb filter, what we need is just some initial signal, and most people who know this kind of stuff would reach for the noise, and then they want to make sure, how? And they want to make sure that the noise is just going to be an impulse, this little tick. And to do that, we're going to use a envelope, and let's use the mod envelope, so modulation envelope, this one here, clickety click. And we're going to set as destination the oscillator 1 volume. And so now I'm going to turn the volume here all the way to infinity minus infinity. And in the mod matrix, I'm going to tell it to be however loud I want this tick to be. Right now this is not a tick, so I'm going to go into the mod envelope and I turn the decay down to something short. That's a tick. But also we have an attack. This is already defaulted to like some value. If you go down to the very bottom, you have a very hard tick. Now we have full control over the length of the impulse, like how long does that impulse go then into our comb filter. And let's go straight to the comb filter. So here we replace that low pass with a comb, and that's down here. Ta-da! There's a comb. And for that to do something, we're going to crank the keyboard tracking, the key tracking all the way up, and we bring the frequency down to, I'm going to double click it, 55 Hertz. And now still it will not sound like much. Nothing happened. But now we're going to increase the resonance, and that gives us a tone. Yes, and now we have like the super basic comb filter harp or whatever. Okay, so the comb filter has a negative feedback and a positive feedback. The positive feedback sounds a bit like a pulse. So, and you might notice that it sounds an octave lower than the subtractive one. Interesting, eh? Now the funny part, why I don't know, but there, in Odin with a comb filter, the frequency has a lower limit. So if I turn this down, if I want to get this down to an octave below, I would have to go to half the amount of hertz, right? So 27.5. But let me just go lower with the mouse here. You will hear there is a cap. See? Below 40 hertz, it just doesn't go lower. Isn't that weird? So what we can do is we go back to 55, and now we're going to use the mod matrix again, and we're going to pick as source the constant. We target the filter frequency, filter 1 frequency, and we go to -50. Don't know why it worked out, but that's actually what it does. And now it is an octave lower, isn't that nice? All right, so in case you don't trust the tuning, a reasonable thing not to trust, we can test it by using a second oscillator. But for that, I'm going to go into the comb filter and I turn off the input from the second and the third oscillator, right? So now in the comb, only the oscillator 1 goes into that. And in the second oscillator, we're going to put a normal analog one, put them on sine. And then we're going to hook that up to filter 2. So now filter 2 doesn't get our comb filter. And now you wonder, yeah, but where is the comb? Just go over here and tell the filter 1 to go also into the output. I can hear a slight vibration. That means it is not perfectly tuned. Can you hear the woo, 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 woo? See? It becomes slower. 55.6. So 55.6 Hertz, and the subtractive feedback in the comb filter appears to be pretty much perfectly in tune. To the higher frequencies, it sort of gets a little out of tune-ish. Actually, it's not bad. Yeah. So there's a very simple kind of harpy, guitar-y like sound. So we were using the velocity from the overall output. But you can also use velocity for the impulse itself. And for that we can go into the mod matrix, to the mod envelope that goes into the oscillator 1 volume, and we scale it by the MIDI velocity. And we do scale it all the way to 100%. So now if I play softly, so now we have a very nice expressive response to the velocity. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. So there's that. Well, if we switch it to positive now, then it will be an octave lower, of course. But then we can just turn this here off for a second. And then we have the trusty positive. Sounds nice too. I like it. Really fascinating it gets. Let's go back to our negative one. Target the filter frequency here. And okay, next weird thing. There are many interesting things you can do with that, with a comb filter and adding other filters and adding another comb filter, all that kind of stuff. But one thing specific to Odin, which I thought was kind of interesting, is when you use unisono. So now when we use unisono, the only thing that actually gets the detune is that second oscillator here. If I turn this one off, nothing. All right, and that is because it doesn't detune our filter frequency, but we can do that. And that is if you go into the mod matrix and you pick as source unisono index, right? You pick the index and then you target again the filter frequency and watch what happens. Isn't that cool? Just give it a little one, because the more you give it, same. Okay, could be something. If you like that sort of thing. But yeah, just a little one, maybe like, you know. 4 is nice. There's another funny thing you can do since you're here in the mod matrix. And that is kind of neat. I can use an envelope to control over time what would happen with that offset. Or I could use an LFO. So let's use, just for shits and giggles, as they say, let's use the LFO1 to modulate our unisono index. Kind of neat, isn't it? It sounds a little weakish in the bottom area, doesn't it? So now let's go to more things we want to do. For example, again, it sounds a bit weak in the bottom area. So we can counteract that by changing the gain of the comb filter according to our MIDI node. So we go back into the mod matrix, pick as source the MIDI node, target our comb filter gain, and say as the MIDI node goes higher, so the value goes higher, the volume should go lower, so we go minus. All right. And maybe we can just help that a little bit by using our second oscillator again. Nice trick. Oh, yeah. There's one thing I did sort of totally ignore, and that is our comb filter, even with a resonance, is this sort of like a decay, right? And the decay naturally becomes shorter as it goes to the higher frequencies. and longer in the lower ones. But since we are also using the analog oscillator in 2, this one only responds to whatever our amplitude envelope is given, or gives. So I will have to mimic the comb filter decay also with the amp envelope. So let's go into the amp envelope and, do this. Decay and sustain to 0. And then you can hear that also the analog oscillator will get a proper decay. And so on and so on. Yeah, and that's the other problem. Sometimes those sounds are so nice that I basically spend the next, I don't know, half hour just doodling around. Yes, and so what's also nice about it, I find, is the very pretty sound, and there's not even a single effect on it. No reverb, no delay, no chorus or whatever. I mean, we have the Unison, of course, that gets us a little bit of levitation. But yeah, it's just a very nice, so that means you can use that like as a dry sound. And that I think is very neat. You can even go down with a width. Still sounds like a decent sound, and then you can, use your gear to place it wherever you want it in your mix. Like Dear VR Pro. I like it too much, I know. This is fantastic if you want to place the instrument somewhere in space. Yeah. Well, I think as a little introduction to the comb filter, this probably should get you started. Some other logical things, if you want to go an octave up, for example, or, you can really just use what you understand about frequency. Like, for example, right now we're at 55.6, so go to 111, yeah, 0.2. Wouldn't that be right? Let's see. 111.2. Cool, yep, seems right. This one is still an octave lower. Kind of nice. What does that sound? Cool. Yeah, anyhow, so that kind of should give you some idea. There's that, and of course, also, really, it's wonderful to combine the combs. And maybe I'll make another, I'm not sure yet, but I might try to make a video on how to make not like these kind of plucky sounds, but like using the comb filter to do flutes and the likes. It's a bit tricky, actually. And oh, I forgot one thing. All right, now we've used a noise oscillator for the impulse, right? But I actually prefer, and it's a bit weird, I prefer to use the wave draw oscillator. And the reason for it is, right now this is just a sine wave. So that's a bit stupid. But the reason for it is you can design the way you know that your impulse looks. And I'm just doing something stupid right now. But it helps actually to design the timbre of your instrument. And it has a tremendous impact whether you go in that only that impulse, an octave lower or an octave higher. If you change the frequency, it changes the character of the sound because the comb filter just repeats this, right? So there's a fun thing you can do, and we go back to the mod matrix for that one. And I'm just going to do this. We're going to take the mod wheel and we hook it up to the oscillator 1 pitch linear. Doesn't matter, could be anything. And we're just going to go up, doesn't matter. And I'm going to go down an octave with this one. Yeah, that's fine, I'm fine with that. Let's add some more nonsense. Okay, and now when I play with a mod wheel, something interesting happens. Isn't that cool? I just love that. Again, I stopped myself right here because, you know, I could go on playing forever. So using the mod wheel to change just the frequency of your impulse, I call it impulse oscillator, really has a tremendous impact on the sound. And I think it's tremendous, but yeah. So I hope that gave you some idea. And maybe there will be another one. All right, bye for now.